So, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit more about your musical journey, whatever parts that you want?
It really goes back, of course, quite far. So, like when I said I wanted to make a career of the music industry, it was a very self-serving approach. I wanted to be known, I wanted to be famous, I wanted it all. In fact, probably all the destructive stuff as well. So, I mean, I pursued that with a lot of energy, and I wasn't a believer. And Christ changed my life and transformed everything. And so there was kind of like this awkward period of time where I was still in this band, and we were kind of like this alternative folk analog synthy mesh up kind of thing, college radio, and we had an album that was locally doing pretty well, and we gigged a lot, and we were recording a second album and everything, and then the roads just kind of diverged at that point. There was no big story to how it ended. There wasn't any conflict or breakdown, but I really felt kind of pulled in a different direction, and I was starting to write spiritual songs and a lot of the truth of the scripture around music. Colossians 3:16, Ephesians 5:19, Psalm 40. Those are like my three anchor points when it comes to understanding music through a biblical perspective. And it was too much. Like, it was just overwhelming to have that truth in me and still try to do it the old way. So I kind of had to hang it up for a while. Actually, God kind of hung it up for me. I had like this big writer's drought for what seemed like a long time. In hindsight, probably wasn't that much. But and for that reason, the first spiritual album I put out was called "We Hanged Our Harps Upon the Willows," and that was just, choosing that verse was just to represent there was a period of time where the instruments were up on the wall, not for the same reason as the Israelites, but I adapted it to my context. So I recorded in 2007 and 2011 two spiritual albums, "We Hanged Our Harps Upon the Willows" and "The Eastern Sky." I kind of struggled with putting them out because of my past. So those were just basically released within my church community and close friends and family. So it was like 100 of them out there kind of thing. And I was happy with that. And I really just wanted to complete the expression and go through the process and get them out there. But then, after 2011, focusing on the career growth, and the kids were getting older, we moved cities and moved back, and all that stuff just, recording music got further and further pushed to the back. I've always been involved in worship at church, so I've never, stepped away from music, singing, and instrumentation. And then this recording is interesting because some of the songs go back to that time, like 2011, and some of them are very recent. So it's like this kind of collection of things coming together. And it really is just about finishing well. And it's just amazing how I think God orchestrated everything, because I wanted to record this in 2018. And the people who play on this album, I didn't even know them yet. And they are amazing. Like, I listened to this as the producer is sending me the mixes, and I'm just like, I can't believe how good this is. And I'm not saying that to be, it's them. Like, they just took it next level. And as soon as I met them and heard them play, I thought that would be really cool if I could do an album with them. So, part of it is your own intention, and then, God has a plan, and you just got to roll with it.
That's a really neat story as well. And thinking like you had, and it sounds like intention was so different. Like, you were in this band, you really wanted to make it, and then you met God, and you were like, I'm okay if 100 goes out. That's good,
Yeah.
because it's a different intention. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you sing for a completely different purpose. And then there's more understanding too. Why do I have these gifts? It really does point back to the ultimate question, like, why am I here? But on a more micro level, why do I have a voice? How come I can strum this thing and make reasonable sound? So it kind of fit that missing piece of the puzzle in.
Right on. Quick side note, are you playing worship in a church right now in Winnipeg, somewhere in Manitoba?
Yes. So we're part of a church plant, Osborne Village Church.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So I'm
Fantastic.
an elder with that, and on the worship rotation as well.
Nice. So tell me about this you have a brand new album and a song coming out soon. Why don't you share a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So July 1st, we'll be releasing the album. It's called A Poem Hidden in Weakness. And I'd say it represents part of my faith that I haven't written songs about before, really about how you feel when your faith is stretched absolutely thin, that you think a pin dropping might shatter the entire thing. And it's probably stage of life. I hadn't experienced that before. So the previous recordings I'd done are very reflective of my salvation story. It's the story that just keeps on giving. You can just write an abundance of songs about this thing that's both equal parts simple and super complex. But then in this case, just kind of major life changes over the last 4 years and unanticipated challenges. And so this album contains songs that are more expressions of that, sometimes pain, a lot of questioning, but it has a sweetness to it as well, and hence the title, A Poem Hidden in Weakness. And yeah, so July 1st is the big day for that. And we're releasing a single this week, Wednesday, June 1st. And that'll be going to our YouTube channel, OJC Records. So excited about that. And the song is called The Last Missing Piece.
Right on. If someone were to ask and they had never heard you before, how would you describe your sound?
That's a great question. I would say folk roots. Those types of sounds are things that I kind of naturally gravitate towards. I write everything predominantly on acoustic guitar, and just a combination of musicians who came around it that, well, I just left it to them. You take it where it's got to go. So a couple of the songs have a lot more of a Nashville kind of feel than I probably would have anticipated. I love it. But yeah, I would say it's certainly down the folk stream. It's not so much country, but you'll hear some of that in the playing on the album.
Cool. Um, when people listen to your songs, to the new album, what do you hope they take away from it?
Ooh, long suffering and faithfulness. So lyrically, those themes that I mentioned before of being pulled thin and having your faith tested and tried, there's a lot of expressions there that question it, but always careful to resolve it with the fact that God never leaves you nor forsakes you, and his character remains consistent. He is faithful and merciful, and the gospel doesn't change. He did give his only son, Jesus Christ, for us. And so, there's a lot of lyrics pointing back to the gospel, but there are a lot of lyrics earlier on that start from doubt. So the message I would say is hang in there, and remember, you don't have to do it yourself. Ultimately, you can rely on the greatest strength there is, and figuring out how to plug into that comfort is key.
So good. And I think very timely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You were talking about the fact that you have some kids, you've got a family. How do they feel about, there's been some time off as you were with this singing, songwriting. Now you're jumping back into it. How do they feel about it?
They're really excited. Like they're like their mom, like just gifted encouragers. So I have like this semblance of guilt, come home from work and then I'm gonna go straight downstairs and start rehearsing. And I rehearsed like a lot for this recording because the group wasn't coming together until just before the studio time. So I knew I had to be like totally on my game. So you feel kind of guilty, like leaving my wife to take care of supper and the kids right after school and all that kind of stuff. But I would come up and they would frequently say, like, I love hearing you down there. I just love hearing you sing. And so they're just so encouraging. And every time I get a new mix in from the producer, it's straight out to the car and to listen to it. And often someone will want to come along with me and hear it. And they're wonderfully encouraging. It makes it so fulfilling to do it. And we try to incorporate, family into everything, family into ministry. And we've always been big on that. So the day I was recording, I said to my wife, you guys all got to come, at least for a little period of time. Of course, we need to be productive, but how often are they going to get to walk into a studio? And we recorded at No Fun Club in Winnipeg, and it's absolutely world class. And you walk in there and it's unbelievable, which is why we shot the video there. So I wanted them to see it. And they're very excited.